After I had said, I know dogs don't eat snapping turtles. Now what? In other words, here's a wolf stalking me, and the two coons that I have seen have transformed themselves into three snapping turtles. But shortly after I had said this, done talking, there was a little dog hiding in the dense vegetation up on the west bank of this large body of water where I was. He scampered across in front of me and rushed out there. Each one of the snapping turtles was far larger than he was, and he devoured all three snapping turtles up, and the image of the little dog never changed. I looked and said, now what? Now I know dogs don't eat dogs. Now what? It wasn't getting any better. Suddenly appeared before my eyes was this giant looking creature. He had the head of a dragon. He appeared in the water right by me. He had the head of a dragon. He had the body of an alligator with heavy armor, and he had blunt looking spines lined up from his back, from his neck, all the way down to his tail. He had a tail curled up on his back like that of a scorpion with a stinger in the center. This creature, this beast, rushed after to the little dog, which was responsible for devouring these three snapping turtles, and he devoured the little dog. And as this beast, this dragon, which I saw in the water with the blunt looking spines on his back, went out and devoured this creature, and I began to look at the two, and the wolf began to look, staring out there at this creature. Soon as that beast in the water had devoured this, it went and claimed victory, seeing the victory over the little dog and over which had devoured all these. And once he claimed victory over this little dog, he came back to claim victory, and this wolf-looking dog met him and devoured him. As I stood and saw, now what? As I stood and looked on, the wolf-looking dog, after he had devoured this beast, this beast, which had the head of a dragon, body of an alligator, tail of a scorpion, I stood and watched this wolf-looking dog turn into a giant pile of ashes, bigger than I was. I mean, it was a large pile of ashes, big as his houses and stuff like that. And the four winds, as if they had been scorched and burnt to death. And I stood and looked until the four winds were stirred up on the face of the earth and scattered all of his remains within the sand, until there was no part of the wolf-looking dog was to be found. God used the sickness. This proved that I am a man sent God, of the prophet, sent by God. I'll tell you about the characteristics of a character that God showed here in the prophet of Daniel. Let me go back to that. Maybe I left a little too soon on it, but let me go back to that. Daniel chapter 7. I want to read that one more time. Excuse me. Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. It says, after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. That means these are the riflemen. These are the military fighting force on the ground after the bombing campaign started over there in Afghanistan and Iraq. This is where it's got to be. Because I will get to the significant part. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was dreadful. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. The CIA. CIA. This was the war with Afghanistan. The little dog was being robbed. As I had shelved the tree over into the brink, that means it was a structure going to come down, and with the twin cones on top was twin tile. Somewhere it was near a landmark, a famous landmark, which was just like a crown, and this was the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty got a crown, so the jagged edge symbolized it was near where the Statue of Liberty was. Once these cones came out and was transformed into 3, the 2 twin buildings was together, which came down together, but it was a total of 3, and they all had vicious meaning. Each one was a vicious building. It was designed for sinister purpose, according to the snapping turtles. They had heavy armor protecting their integrity, which symbolized by these being snapping turtles. These was the primary sources, which was the heartbeat, which rules and regulates, govern the trademarks and everything of the world. It was the same thing as snapping turtles to the adversary. They was being protected by military fighting forces, which is the armor on the back of it. It was total of 3, which one was the Pentagon and 2 was the Twin Tower Trade Center building. It was total of 3. And this little dog was responsible for devouring these. So the vehicle, this here became the head of the dragon, meaning this was a nuclear country, had nuclear capabilities, heavy armored ships. These blunt spines with the aircrafts and the big guns and the missiles and everything, payload it carried. These was men of war, and it had stinging of a scorpion. It had was nuclear capability. These one went out to Afghanistan, which was the little dog, which was after being locked, who were responsible for sending terrorists over here on American soil, which was the west bank of this river. By them being on the west bank of this river, they came to American soil and they went and knocked down the Trade Center building, as God showed me how this thing was going to be. But I said, showed you it in the other part. The cloud, black cloud, white hands, horns with bill eyes, the wolf that was stalking me, all was the same force, connected by the word synonyms. They had sinister meaning in the beginning, and just like he said, 3 other forces of the United States was plucked up by the root. It's a sinister mind that they had these people said these are the ones that's going to protect us. These are the ones that's going to turn against the United States of America because they are the Antichrist. They are the forces of perdition spoken of in Revelation chapter 17. They are the ones that have been working miracles throughout the earth because they are the ones that Satan dwells in. They are the ones that bring the drugs and everything on him to beguile the people's mind, where they cannot comprehend what's right and what's wrong and become an unfruitful tree. And the only thing they do, they indulge and consider to take on sinister measures. It means, well, this is the part here. God showing us this. The destruction of America is not going to come from the outside from which they are led, but it's going to come from within. Once this man demonstrates, not by his own power, he's going to let the nations fight his battle for them. And when they continue to fight his battle for him at the end, God showing that wolf right there, sit back and watch all of these events take place like over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And at the end, the dark force that they had, he gonna come up when the nations get weak, and he gonna show his true color. He gonna come out there and take the victory, and he gonna